Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Migraines Psychology. So let me tell you a little bit about this class. This class is about each of you. So we're going to do a lot of in-class activities. We're going to talk a lot. We're going to share a lot. My hope is that you learn to hear and listen to what you're really saying, not to what you think you're saying, and that you can extrapolate that to your clients. So I already did a little investigative recording with Mary. I had this long conversation with her this morning about work, her weight, and I'm just asking questions, and I start formulating a hypothesis. So we'll talk, I'm going to pick on you just because we were sharing that earlier, just so that you can start really hearing what people are saying. And you guys are learning tongue and pulse, and you're going to have all of these different sort of strategies to support what you're hearing and what you think they're saying. I personally work only with listening with the mind and with my spiritual guidance. So this is what I do all the time. I don't take pulse, I don't, do the tongue, I don't do these sort of the full gamut of, and you guys can choose to practice how you will. I just kind of want to let you know where I work from. So, so we're going to do a lot of in-class activities, and you'll share. And then you can use these activities with your clients. It's another way of getting information. And so it's about really hearing beyond what the client is saying. I'd like to bring in some strategies like astrology so that you guys can see some of the parts of the mind quickly on the chart, even if it's just one more detail for your sort of, case building. I want to talk to you a little bit about cycles and patterns. And I was talking to Carolina, and she made a comment, so I asked her about something about 7 years ago. So why I choose these questions to sort of get, the big picture of really what's going on. Because no one ever presents with what's really coming. They come for a headache or, a fungus or something, but there's a much bigger story beyond that. So that's where I live. It's like my friends are like, can you turn that off? Like, I wish I could. I'm really trying. So just be prepared to share and to really be open, and I'll pull at strings. There was a song, I think it was like in the 90s, and it's called The Sweater Song by Weezer. And it's like if you ever pull on a sweater string and then the whole thing comes out. That's how I work. I pull at one string, and then I just start seeing the whole thing unfold. So Ayurveda is so beautiful because it allows for that, because it truly is, mind, body, spirit. And we're going to talk about exactly what that means, and the definition of illness and some of the stuff you've already touched about. But we're going to talk about it from like a psychological or a mind perspective. We'll talk a little bit about Sankhya. And I'm going to take sort of the Sankhya model and sort of bring it to how the mind and the ego and all of that is created, but so that you can extrapolate it again to the now. So no matter which way we take Ayurveda, it all leads us to the mind. Okay. So we're going to start with one activity. And I'm going to give you this thing. If you know what it is, great. You're still going to do the activity. Don't say anything. You're going to tell me what it is, what it's for. You're going to invent it and give it a name. Okay? You know what this is? Okay, relax. So whatever comes to mind, just give it a name and a function and tell us a story about it. Do you know what it is?
No.
Oh, okay. When everyone's ready, we'll start with something.
So you want a name?
A name, a function, and tell me what it's for, a story, whatever. Just you're going to educate us what you do with it, why, but it reminds you of where you got the name from. There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
You got it?
I don't know this.
No, yeah, you're just
You're
gonna
making
say
it up.
whatever,
You're making
you're
it
gonna make it up. There's no right or wrong.
Because it's gonna tell a big story when you make, how you make up the story.
That and some other stuff.
We're gonna make up a story?
If you don't know what it is, and if you do know what it is, you also need to give a story about it, maybe why you used it or whatnot, but
Okay.
what it reminds you of, why you gave it the name, what it's for. So it has a function that you're gonna invent, a name that you're gonna invent. There's no right or wrong answer.
Pizza cutter.
Pizza cutter.
Yeah.
That's what I thought too.
No problem.
So we may have this.
So you have a name, now think of a function, and
What cuts pizza?
we'll keep it to yourself that
Oh,
you're gonna
oh.
share. So if you wanna make notes, or just, when you have it, just let me know so I can start asking. You got it? Jen, you got it? Your story and your
Oh.
name and everything? Okay, you
Oh,
have it?
and we gotta name the item
Yeah, name it also.
besides pizza cutter?
Well, that could be your name, that's okay. You have it, Mary?
I think so.
Okay, and you?
Yeah, I got 2 stories.
So everybody has it?
Stories?
Yeah, I got 2 stories.
So Sonia, what is it? What's it for?
I pretty much came up with the same thing, pizza cutter, cuts the pizza. I want to say it's got 2 different ways, but it would be the blade is the same shape, so cuts the same way on either end. So I don't have much of a story.
Make up a story. How did you know it was a pizza cutter? What was the first thing that came to mind?
Just memory of something that was a pizza cutter.
Where did you see a pizza cutter that you knew?
At a pizza shop.
Okay, so tell us a story.
Okay, so I used to live in New York and I used to walk to school on occasions down the streets of New York, a lot of pizza shops. And go in for a slice of pizza for $1.
Yummy.
$1? Really? Wow, this is like I hit the lottery. And so I remember watching the guys cutting the pizza with something like that. That was my story.
It's a good story. Thank you for sharing it. I don't either.
I also thought the same thing. I thought not just of one, I thought of 2. I thought of, for the name Pizza Cutter and the divider. I can't remember, but that's
What's the divider?
this. I thought it just divides the pizza slices. And the reason why I picked that was because one of my dad's good friends was the manager of a Domino's pizza store. And I remember being little, and he was just, as he would use this looks like, to cut the pizza, as he would cut it, it was just so perfect. And then he would just divide each slice, and I was amazed by it, being little, and just the perfect little triangle slice. And that's kind of what I thought of being a little girl with my little glasses and looking at him, just divide the little pizza. And That's what I thought of when I looked at it. Yeah, that's what I thought of.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I was at home one day and I was baking up some bread and I decided I wanted to make a pizza. And I invented this little gadget because I had, some knives that I was trying to cut the pizza with. And it wasn't cutting all the way through to the pizza because I like, thin crust and I like it kind of crunchy. So I designed this little gadget to help, us all cut our pizza better. And here it is.
Cheese.
Okay, so it is the season, and we build our little Christmas village with the train and everything, and I found this neat little tool to make the trenches, because the wheels are different in layout. One makes a trench, and the other one I use for the to mark the railroads for the Christmas village. So, and it came in very handy because it's easier to do than just trying to do it with a marker or something. Very quick. So I call it the Christmas Village Elf. That's so cute. I love that. It's great. That's great.
And did you build Christmas villages when you were?
Never.
That's something you saw.
I've seen one.
She just saw it in her mind.
I've have the railroad thing, but he's not Christmas Village.
Very cute. Okay, great.
This is an urban unicycle. The urban runners, the guys that go through and they jump off of buildings and they go acrobatics across stairs and rails and all that. Well, this is an urban unicycle. And that's why it has two wheels, so you can flip it over and do tricks. And this is for mice, so that they can get involved in the...
For who?
For
mice. This is for mice. Mice ride this unicycle.
Oh,
Mice?
Yeah, mice.
Mice, like a mouse.
Little white mice. And also, I saw, the reason why I saw it this way was because of Sia's song, her video that has the guy that has the round piece of metal and he's holding on to it and he rolls
Sia?
around. Sia.
okay.
And this video, this guy has got this big metal wheel. It's just a round wheel and he
Yeah.
rolls around
It's
it.
amazing.
It's amazing how it works.
No.
Takes a lot of muscle to do that.
Muscle.
Anyway, it's the same concept. So this is for mice to do urban unicycling and tricks. So it can flip over. But the real purpose of this is a screen device for laying in screen. The one that has the groove for screens in your house and in your pool enclosures, this is to lay in the little piece to hold the screen in place. The one that has the trench is for the round spline, so that you can push it in. And the one that doesn't have a trench is for the ribbon spline that you can push it in.
It's like Christmas Village.
Exactly, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Or-
yeah,
It's a
or a
spline
mouse
roller,
unicycle. Yeah,
that
it's
is the
urban
official name.
What's-
at
what's
Home
the name?
Depot. Spline roller.
Yes.
So if your screen porch in your house breaks and you have to replace it, like he said, you buy this piece of rubber, and this is what's,
Or actually, you can just pull out the old
Forces the
one. You pull out the old one, lay in the new screen, and push it down. And always start at the top.
so that's the
How
true
much
function.
does that cost?
$3, I think.
Oh, wow.
So it's an actual.
Yeah. It works well. I've laid in a lot of screen. When you have cats, they destroy screens real
Okay,
well.
I figured, I said, like, you think anyone's gonna know that? Like, well, we just had a hurricane, so maybe
Yeah.
if they didn't know, they know now. But, yeah, it's a real thing at Home Depot. Excuse me. Okay, so I will collect those. pizza cutter, Christmas Village, nice unicycle. Spoilers. So why, and we'll talk a little bit about like what you guys said, but why would I give you a tool like this?
You're checking for the way the mind is working. Because by the story, or by what your thought process is, or what your memory is, because it could be any one of the things. It depends on, like, she went from a memory, so that tells you where she goes from. And then there was makeup, and then also the real thing. So it gives you a concept of where the mind is and what it perseverates about.
Okay, and what else?
An icebreaker, maybe?
Okay, but why give you a tool if you don't know what to do
Visualization,
with it?
so you can see it, you know, for people who are more visual.
Okay. The reason why I brought it is because it represents the mind, which is a tool and none of us know how to use it. So he may know sort of the mechanics of it, and many of us do, especially with a Western background in psychology or things like that. But really, none of us know how to use this thing that we call mind. Yet, it is the root of everything. Absolutely true with the story. So we were all given sort of a story of who we were or are or supposed to be, and we'll talk about those. And from there, we construct our entire life, and we construct this quote-unquote reality. And these memories, every single one of us is reflecting on everything we think and everything we want, a memory. So when I said to sort of that we're in a process of self-remembering, that's what this is. Every single one of you that decided to study Ayurveda has a memory of Ayurveda from somewhere. This is stored in your chitta. This is, whether it's past life, past, present, future. There is no new thought. So when we are with people and we listen, and you can do this with a client, you just take them on a fairy tale, you just let them talk. I did that with Marion this morning. I learned so much about her. But within the story, I was seeing certain ding, 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 and putting together things. And so a session can just be that. We talked about when we were doing the clinical orientation, giving them one or two things, but listening and creating a safe space. But it's listening to what really is behind that. And this is because all of us have everything already thought out. In this incarnation, we are sort of filtering a lot of those experiences through the lens that we have in this lifetime. And so that's what I kind of want you to understand, is how to use the mind that you've been given. So we're going to talk about value systems, we're going to talk about philosophy of life, we're going to look at the stories that we tell ourselves, that we believe, that we create to confirm those value systems. Because we're just in a constant confirmation. This is my story, this is my story, this is my story. Therefore, every single thing I say, I do, I touch, I believe, has to validate that. So we are actually very simple. But if you go into your closet, you've got a ton of stuff that you wear each day. But you only have one body in which to wear it on. It's the same thing with the mind. The theme of who you are, who you think you are, who you believe that you are, is one. You just dress it up in work, in relationships, in activities that you do, and hobbies. So these are the masks that we wear. And as we speak, whatever it is that we say, we're constantly just revealing the truth of that sort of underlying theme or belief system that we have. So if we listen, people are constantly telling us who they are, we just have to listen to, okay? And this is gonna be a very key skill in terms of your practice and just life. So I was with a girlfriend of mine at the park the other day, and we went to take the dogs, and she's in her mid-50s, and she's super cute. She's just a really cute girl. And this guy comes and starts talking to us, and he's like, oh, do you need water? Because we had the dogs, and he's like, I have this double osmosis water, and he's like, oh yeah, you know, my wife and kids this, and this system is really expensive, and yeah, I have a dog because we brought home 2, but like he was just going on and on with the story, and then he's like, oh, and have a positive day. I think this was his New Year's Day. He's like, and have a positive day, start the new year off right. So she's like, oh my God, he was so cute. It's such a shame that he's wearing a wedding ring, and you know, that's what I want. I want to meet a guy like that, not like on Match or something. I want to meet someone like that that comes up to me and think. And I said, well, do you want me to tell you what he just said? So everything has a meaning. Every single thing has a meaning. So he starts with asking if the dogs need water. And water is symbolic for life, and water is symbolic for mother. So, because we're in the womb, our amniotic fluid is the, you know, and it's reverse osmosis, clear, clean water. We're not talking alcohol, which is more of a toxic fluid. So within one thing, there's many, many meanings, right? And this is to explain how you're speaking and how you're always sending messages out. This is why we create our own reality. This is why the universe is consistently giving us what we put out there. Nothing is an accident. So this person, my friend's mother, had just recently died. And her mother was very, very toxic. And her mother had told her that finally, when she had her as the baby, I finally have something of my own. So this woman for 50-something years believed that her role in life was being this thing for her mother. So the guy had his story, but my friend was reflected in this story too. And he's like, it's double osmosis. It's like reverse osmosis. So rather than her being the daughter to the mother, she was like the mother to the mother. And now she's ready to assume sort of like her own identity and have her own life. And a few weeks ago, she lost all of her license and credit card. Her purse got stolen. We were on the beach. And then 2 weeks later, it happened again. Wow. And I said to her, I said, you have to understand your identity is being stolen because the identity you have is no longer the one that you need. Yeah. So now this guy comes with this water. But he has a wedding ring. And he's talking about, oh, the wife and the kids and the dogs and the pound, and he took in this stray dogs. Babe, I'm a really good guy. I'm not really happy in my marriage. Right. But I'm looking for something to take care of. I want this. And then, at the end, have a positive day. What you say and what you create. I have a spiritual foundation. And these are the things that she wants. She wants a man to come up to her in the park or somewhere. She wants someone to start a new life, to have this new identity with, rather than being this mother to her mother. And she wants somebody who, she's a Cancer, so she wants definitely a nurturing home. Mm-hmm. And I think at one point he mentioned something about cooking.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, very short, everything was there. And then the spiritual piece. So if we really listen, and it's two-way, it's not only what he was saying, but what she was attracting, because this is what she's asking for.
I see.
Okay? So it's very important. I've told you guys this before, but you'll hear me say this over and over and over again. When your client comes, it's also about you. Okay? And that, I have to tell you, is the greatest gift of working with people, is that we are constantly being shown who we are, what we want. And so it's a two-way exchange. This is not about your client only. And we want to use this gift so that we can see what we're putting out into the world and why we're getting what we're getting. And when you learn to use the mind, you become present, you're aware, you see how the universe speaks to you, it's like you're alive. It could be very taxing at times, and I don't live in that space all the time because everybody has a buddhi and we have to live, in the human and the logic, and I don't like to live in the logic, conscious mind, but I'm forced to, right? But really, if we can enter that space, it's like everything is just amazing.
So when you have an experience like that, how is it that you know the message is between them two and not you and him?
Oh, I'm sure I had my own experience in that too. I was more of like an outsider in the sense that I was observing, but yes, you're absolutely in that.
You didn't enter.
But the conversation was more directed towards her? Is
Yes,
that why?
yes, that was definitely him hitting on her.
Oh,
Because I have a thing saying,
stay away.
yeah, I'm married, I'm not, this is
Right.
not. But within that exchange, of course, there's something for me too. And perhaps it's just to gather information to give to her, but I also have to think of my own thing. So
Right.
you're always, remember, we're all one. And we'll talk about that concept and we'll go back to Sankhya. But when you're all one, then that means everything is a message always for you too, So the skill or the intellect piece starts to be like, oh, this is what this is about, or this is what this is saying, or this is why this showed up in my life. But nothing ever that you say, that you do, that you think, that you feel, that you experience is worthless. Nothing. Nothing. I mean, we may not, you may know, but I don't know what the purpose of the appendix is. I don't know really much about human anatomy anyway, but, we say, oh, take out the appendix, we don't need it. Well, it was there, biology had a function. Same thing is with our mind. There's nothing that is happening. The thing is that we don't live in that heightened state of awareness all the time. It's like impossible. I mean, the rishis of the rishis, perhaps those that are in the Himalayas, so if we can just capture a little bit of that, our life can change. We don't take things personally. We can live a life of like truth because we understand sort of the sattvic qualities of the experiences that are happening. And so we just live in a different space. So with just a little understanding of why something enters your life, why you say something, why this experience or this conversation, it starts to shift. And then no longer does the ego take over all the time. You need the ego, we'll talk about that. We don't live only with manas, this sort of exterior mind. We're not dominated only by the senses. And we can live, and I work with the Akashic Records, it's sort of that universal energy field. We can live in that Akash. We can live in that universal consciousness. So even if we can't sustain that all the time, there are things that we can do and awarenesses and listening and especially exchanges with the other that can help us get into that space continuously. So that's why, and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys said, and throughout class I'll point things out, but everything has meaning. Every single thing has meaning, and if we just sort of listen, and the beauty is that we have the internet, the beauty is that there's tons of books, the beauty is that we can ascribe the meaning we want to things. So we get to also just understand everything in terms of what our subjective reality is. And that's okay. That's okay. That's part of why these exchanges happen. It's not having to be perfect, which is something you said. Okay. So she was like these perfect little slices. The divider. The divider. If she cuts the pie, each of us is going to get the exact amount of pie. Like she's equal in that. But there's a judgment and a value about being perfect. There's a perfection issue there. And so she can beat herself up. You can get autoimmune disease because of the amount of perfection and judgment around the value and the worth of being perfect. And that can be very unhealthy. that can cause illness. And it may not move into your physical body, but your mental body, your mind, already carries the judgment of perfection. And so I would pull at that. Okay, so Mary mentioned she's close to being 30 pounds overweight. She's 28 pounds overweight. That has a lot of symbolism and importance, and we're going to talk about that too. So, and these are just general, 2-second type of things. She talks about the story, the dollar. I hit the lottery. So there has to be, there's a couple of things. There has to be a financial importance. Either struggling with money, or money from childhood was a topic that was spoken about a lot, or getting a lot for your money. You're someone who maybe wants to really make sure that if you pay for something, you're going to get your dollar's worth. It's not good. Like me, I could care less. I buy, I want that, I don't look at the price tag. Like, I have a very different value system because, and we'll talk about where all of this comes from, but that's important. The value, what you're getting. So that links back to, we're going to talk a little bit about needs. We have unmet needs from childhood. We have unmet needs from the moment of conception, but that perhaps there were dinner conversations around, a budget or a coupon, or how to stretch the dollar, or mom had 3 jobs. There has to be a theme there about perhaps money and its value and protection. Okay, because that was the emphasis. I won the lottery. Okay, there's a saying in Spanish, bueno, bonito y barato. Like, how do you say that? Pretty, good quality, and cheap. Like that. That's like what I hear when, your imagination, just with how you created this, and we help us all cut the pizza better at home. I found some incongruence in your story. So I definitely see this like mentality of the imagination and serving all. So a mentality of like service or the other matters. But your story had a little bit of incongruence because you were saying thin cut, but you went like this. So it was like the thick, but she said thin and crusty. So there's something there with that we'd have to explore. Is what I say necessarily what I'm expressing? Did I have to say something to please the other person because who I truly was wasn't accepted? The elaboration around the pizza and the crust, food has a lot to do with like nourishment and nourishing mother safety needs. The food comes from the reptilian brain. People that have food issues or breath issues or sex issues oftentimes have basic safety needs from childhood, and it reflects as either an overly, let's say, someone who wants to cook all the time, or someone who hates to cook, or someone who hates sex, or someone who loves too much, things like that. So all of these little pieces. So there was an incongruence there. So we want to see when we do the mind, body, spirit, sort of triad, where that comes from. Because the reason we are this way, and all of us have this, is because we were sort of conditioned this way. Our true nature, our Atman, is not this. These are the koshas, the layerings of crap that are on us. Because in that split second, something, somewhere in life, you had to be incongruent. Maybe it was to save your life, who knows? But so we start seeing these things. Marion went off with the Christmas village, but yet the function, the logic, the precision, the functioning, the wheel was to do this, the wheel was to do that. I want to be imaginative, I want to be a child, I want a Christmas village, but I can't because I have to work, and I have to be logic, and I have to be linear, and I have to do it right. So there's a desire to be that childlike, free-flowing self, but duty called. Duty called. She couldn't.
This is so on point.
Yeah,
It's almost scary.
This is what I do all day. And it's so hard to turn off. I really but I'll go to like a dinner party or something, and I'll end up just sitting. My husband's like, can you please Like, I can't help it. And then, of course, I create it because I sit next to the person who wants to spill everything. So now with my friends, what I've started doing with my friends is, which Francis do you want? You want the Francis to tell you, yeah, he's a son of a bitch? Or do you want the Francis to just listen? Or do you want the Francis this? Because this is who I am. This is my identity.
And where's the fun Francis?
Oh, she's there. She's definitely there. But for me, this is fun.
Oh, this is
For
fun.
me, this is,
But not for your friends.
well, the friends I hang out with, it's fun too. My husband, no.
You just like,
Not
shut it off.
fun at all. So I've learned, I drop seeds and then I move on and hope the garden flows, grows. But it is. And if we listen, and the more you kind of learn, the more you'll see, So.
That's awesome.
Quit laughing.
Yeah, that was so cute when you said the mice. So the urban unicycle. Okay. So we're just there's a lot there, but we'll just pick on the unicycle thing. There's very much a single focus. There's a lot of concentration and single focus that everything channels through a specific sort of filter. Because it was that uni.
Yeah.
Think of that, it was very, very much. And the mice, I want to take that and I want to make it smaller. I want to reduce that energy, that concentrated energy of the unicycle of the one thing. The mouse is like a microcosm, a miniature sort of. I want to bring that down. I want to minimize that. I want to make it smaller. It's somewhat overbearing, if you will. And
This is yesterday's discussion. This is good.
okay. So it's like there's this big thing. I want to understand it, let's say through a lens, or everything goes through that one single point, but it's too much. It's too much, it's too concentrated, it's excessive. Bring it down to like the minuscule, this mice sort of level. And the science part of him is, I am an experiment. I'm an experiment. Mice are experiment animals.
Oh, wow.
And so you see yourself almost as like this guinea pig,
Every day. Every day.
an experiment.
Every day. Every day. The thing about the bringing down to a focal point, yesterday we were discussing that my migraines are focused in my pineal gland, which is crown chakra. I read it from that book, it's talking about that. And basically, when you have too much energy, then you end up getting migraines. And also with the separation from your moolah chakra.
Yes, because migraines
Apana.
are related to wanting to solve problems with the head.
Yes.
And we cannot solve problems with our head, we have to solve them with our
I did it for many years.
So when we have head ailments, and oftentimes people that suffer from migraines are not grounded in their body.
Wow.
Prana and apana separation.
So we can see it in everything.
When I started meditating, well, before I started meditating, I would have here and there some headaches. And I could tell that they were brought on by when I had to analyze something. Then when I started meditating, they pretty much went away from one day to the next. And I think I feel almost like I can control them because I stopped this and they stop.
Yeah. We're not solved, I mean, we have our buddhi, we have our intellect, there are certain things that require this rational, logical mind. Absolutely, it's a function, it's only one of the functions. But when you're trying to think of existential or life problems, or why certain things are in your life, and you try to solve them from here, whereas in meditation, you're opened up to the universal consciousness, and it's already there. The answer is already there. There is no new thought. You have to understand that. There is no new thought. All we are doing is recycling the thought. So I just wrote a book. I wrote what already exists in the world in my words. I didn't create anything new. None of us are creating anything new. So when we're in this concentrated space of the mind where we think that we're going to answer that question because we have, so you see where the buddhi and the ahamkara are together, because I can fix this. Then the migraines and headaches and things like that are a result. But when you open to the space of the Akash, of this higher, unicosmic intelligence, and all of a sudden you allow the information to flow because it's already there. There isn't anything for us to invent. So, and I'll share with you my model. I have this therapeutic model. I have a podcast and stuff like that. And so it's tools I use with clients, and you're more than welcome to use it. It's all free online. I'm very big on ceremony and ritual, because ceremony and ritual allows us to get out of the conscious mind and into the subconscious mind and start shifting things. So a few months ago, I had a client who we did some past life work, and it turns out that she was a Freemason in a past life. And she's a very, very big wig in Washington, D.C. now, like very big. Worked for Obama for many years. And D.C. is where the Masons created D.C. Everything is strategically placed, right? So we did this ceremony for her, and what we did was we took her name and we cut the little letters and we made a new name for her out of those letters. And that's ultimately all we're doing. We're taking all of this energy, all of this information that already exists, everything that is already is. You're not creating anything. And you're literally just taking it and mixing the letters around and making it a new name. That's it. So when we try from the head, that's why we get the pain, because we're not letting the spirit dictate. So that's why I said at the beginning, allow this to just be open and enter. And I'll talk to people and I don't necessarily know, and then all of a sudden I'll have a feeling, or all of a sudden I'll have oh, that's what that is. So I'm in my logical, rational mind. I have to be talking to a client with buddhi and I have to be listening, but I also allow that to flow. So one of the reasons that we chant, and my tradition isn't so much of the Ayurvedic tradition, my training, this is part of it. I'm quite eclectic in I use everything. It's a tendency of mine is to spread myself thin, although this has shifted now as I've gotten older. But I've studied everything, like Egyptian mythology. I'm a big mythology person. I love myth as a teaching tool. Obviously astrology, Akashic records, Ayurveda, things like that. But in any tradition, we open sacred space. So my normal way when I see a client is I just was so sick this morning I didn't feel well, but I'll bring it tomorrow. I take holy stick and I open sacred space and I cleanse my client and I open the space. And this is what I invite you guys to do in any conversation, in the beginning of your day, if you're going to have an argument, if you have to solve a problem. Open sacred space. And sacred space can be, if you have the chanting, even if you just say Om, and it can be out loud, it can be, to yourself. And what does it mean? Why do we chant these chants? I open sacred space, something that I do in my shaman tradition, which is when we open the 4 winds, which I'm going to talk about yantras later, to explain why we do this, is because what's eliminated in a sacred space is fear, doubt, guilt, shame. Those are the things that keep us from connecting to that universal consciousness. So when I'm with a client and I'm physically hearing, I'm in my logic, I'm in my buddhi, what they're saying, and then my sort of universal consciousness confirms this, and I say it, things happen. Healing occurs. Aha moments happen. But most people, and I teach people to develop their skills, the thing is, oh, I don't know. Oh, I'm not sure. What if I'm wrong? And that's all of the manas, that's all of the crap. Because what if I'm wrong? What if I'm not perfect? What if I dare say what I really mean? Then what will be taken from me? Where will I not be accepted? Where will I be judged? Where will I not be validated? And that's all we're ever doing. And that's why so many people will not do this sort of spiritual, quote unquote, work or connect with the divine or trust their intuition, because of those value statements, those judgments, those insecurities. Usually they stem from childhood. You'll learn that it really was all gifted to you at the moment of conception. But then that's it. And so we don't let that universal consciousness flow through us because we're afraid of whatever our value system, our parents said, no, we don't believe in that, or this is wrong, and we're going to do value system activity in a moment. But when we can be in our logical, rational mind, listening and engaging logically, but allow that to flow, that's the magic. That's why when Jesus says, what is the pulse telling you? Listen to the pulse, let the pulse just speak to you. That's another way of letting that information flow. So when we create a sacred space with a chant or with a prayer or with whatever, however it is, you're already saying to the universe, I am allowing what you need to show me, that I already know because it's already in you, to flow. I am allowing that flow. I am allowing that this knowledge exists within me. And that part of our mind has been severed. It has not been something that we've been allowed to develop. Now we're having a renaissance. I say the divine feminine. I say Mother Earth is pissed and she's taking her power back. And that's why so many yoga students and so many people are doing readings and so many people are psychic and all of that, because that's our true nature. That's what we've always been. But with the beginning of Christianity and of these patriarchal societies, that intuitive nature was sort of pushed down. It was suppressed. And the intellect, the perfection, I don't want to make a mistake, I'll be judged if I'm not smart enough. The GPA, and I told you guys first day of class, this is so not about the GPA. And I told my students, we don't wear a GPA on our name tag. Your patients couldn't care less if you're a 4.0. If you don't know how to draw that blood, get away from me. I don't care what your test said, but we have had skewed, quote unquote, intelligence. We've had skewed notion of where our value lies in terms of the mind. So now it's coming back. But this idea of creating a sacred space. So when you're with a patient or a client, or in a conversation like that day, and it could be simple as I allow. Create that sacred space so that you let not only your logic be there, but you let this universal intelligence flow through you, because it's constantly there. But it's the mind or the rational mind that blocks that. Because people say, I'm not intuitive. Oh, I don't know. No, yes, you are. We all are. But if you want to be so logical, so the headaches are a big, big thing with that. And you can tell that to your client. What problem, you can write this down, what problem are you trying to solve with your head that needs to be solved with your heart? When you have clients that present with head issues. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then you just listen to what they say. Let them tell you, and we'll talk a little bit about the organs. So that's my hope for you in this class, that you see your own sort of limitations, your own judgments, your own fears, your own values that are limiting you. And we're only limited by these stories that we were told about ourselves and the stories we keep telling about ourselves. Okay? So, yes.
Everything's in there. Everything is in there.
Step 2 of my model.
But in reality, we see everything through filters.
Each and every one of us.
Everybody that's how we see the external world, is some sort of a filter that we're applying, whether value, beliefs, whatever it is.
Sure.
So really, at the time that something is being presented, the guy walks up and talks with his double reverse osmosis water, how I'm filtering that event at that moment is really what I need to observe, because that's really what the mirror is. The mirror is just how I'm filtering. And then I can decide at that point if that filtering is messed up or has an inaccurate belief or value attached to it.
It always is messed up, has a value attached to it.
Right. Because it's of
Always. We are in a human body. Always.
Attachment
The problem isn't that we've attached the value to it. The problem is that we don't understand what those values are, that we have them, how they impact us.
and who put them there.
Well, right, and it's usually the parents, but we'll talk a little bit about the moment of conception. So it isn't an issue. It's about going beyond that. That's what I want to teach you. I want to teach you to go beyond the fact that there's a value and what to do with it. So I have like some questions for you guys, for yourself, when you're in a situation, so you can look. So we have a higher self and we have a lower self. And so, I do this work all day. My husband is from central Pennsylvania, has zero spiritual foundation. And how the hell does he meet up with me? Where spirit is my life, okay? So several months ago, we were having this conversation. And, I'm always like spirit, and my guide said, and oh my God, the guides, and I'm busy 7 days a week. He's like, okay, something's gotta happen in that room. People keep coming. He doesn't really get it or care too much, and that's fine. But over the years, obviously, he's learned some things. And we're having this issue, and I'm like, let me take the issue and sort of dissect it so that I can get past my value statements and my judgments and all of that. And I recognized that when I am speaking about spirit, for instance, or my guidance, that is alienating to the other person if they don't have that. And I'm like, oh, okay. How can I break it down so that I can meet him in his space of logic and stuff? And I use the spiritual concepts. And I sat with him and I said, you know what? I was doing this ceremony and I asked him for help. My guides are like, asking for help, asking for help. And I'm like, I'm not gonna ask him for help. It's like the devil and the angel, like we are in this fight. So I call that my guidance, But my ego is, hell no, I'm pissed at him. Like we're in an argument, I'm not gonna ask him for help. My ego. And of course, my guides are like asking for help. So I'm like, can you help me? So I'm doing this ceremony, I'm building like this house. It's probably around September, October. And at that moment, I realized that. I said, this is the way to explain it. And I said to him, it's gotta be maybe alienating for you to think that I have this relationship with these people or guides or whatever you think, because I don't know what's in his head. Really, that's just my highest self. And I explained it just like that. I said, my lower self didn't want to ask you for help, but my highest self said, ask for help.
Yeah.
It's me always. There is no third person. It is Francis. It's just the better Francis. It's the Francis that can see beyond the values and the judgments and the ego, or it's the Francis that's human and is attached and wants to be right. I'm like, there's no third and for his logical mind, that helped. So I still have my words, I still have my guides, nothing shifted for me. I didn't give anything up. But I utilized the experience for a moment to now become one with the other person. And if we utilize these experiences in the park with the dog, talking to our friends, with a client, we can continuously find a way to get to our highest self. We continuously get to a universal consciousness. We can continuously get to the universal I. Because when we talk more about the ego, you know, the ego has its function and it's necessary, and we will have an ego to the day that we die. But how can, and those are some of the questions, how can I sort of live in my highest self, or the highest version of myself, so that the lower functions, if you will, of the mind, we have a lower mind and a higher mind, doesn't always take precedent. But most of us are continuously living in the lower mind. The me, the I, and I will joke and say, what do you expect from a city that's called Miami? You got my and me in the name. I mean, can you get any more ego? Like,
Yeah.
this is all that Miami is about.
Yeah.
My me. I mean,
It's
and
very,
it carries the energy of it, you know? So we have to see that, why we're all living in Miami, where we have that in ourselves,
yeah.
because we all do. So it's not about criticizing it, it's about accepting it and knowing how to sort of transcend and go beyond. And every single experience that you have is useful. You don't have to use every single one. You're allowed to stay in your ego and what I call the child, and, you know, have your temper tantrum, and that's fine. But you want to at least learn how to go to that place of the highest self when we want to, and how to milk the moment, I call it, in any situation, so that I can at least glean the lesson from why something shows up in my life. So we're not going to necessarily let go of the values and the judgments, Ken. We want to sort of transcend them or learn from them. In the astrology chart, there's a planet called Saturn, and I'll beat you to death with Saturn because it's so, so important. But Saturn is that process that teaches us how to release those values. And we'll see all of that when I bring the chart, so you can see exactly what your values are. That will show up. That's the beauty of that. I say it's you on a piece of paper, because you can see in 2 seconds what your mind is made up of. And that mind that you're going to fight the rest of your life. I'll explain how that's all created in a moment. So, why do we study Ayurvedic psychology? First and foremost, no one can agree on a unifying system. So it's important to know what's out there. Even within the Eastern traditions, the Upanishads explain one way, the Gita explains another way, the Vedas another way, and Vedanta's another way. So remember the Shadrashan when you covered the philosophies. So the words are similar. We're going to use the 4 functions of the mind with, you know, buddhi, manas, chitta, and ahamkar. So that's going to be the way. And a lot of these texts use the same words, but maybe they have more words or different words, and we're just going to stick to those. So this is one of the reasons that we're studying it, so you understand how this all works. I disagree, but it's difficult to observe the mind like you can observe the body. The mind is material. The mind, I just observed each of your minds. We can, but we have to learn. Most people don't know how to observe their mind. They're observing their behaviors, their body, their actions. But we want to always link it back to mind, because mind is the one that creates everything. We'll see that in a minute. Thought is subjective. It's subjective because we all have a culture, a religion, a gender, a childhood, value statements, judgments, shortcomings, parents, different past lives. So I have twins. Same exact chart. Very different people. They grew up in the same house, with the same parents, with the same values, but they also come with a lot of samskaras from previous lives when they were not twins, and therefore they reflect things differently. So we don't, in our field of study, stop at this lifetime. And we know that we're carrying all of this stuff. We carry that in our chitta, we carry that in our energy, in our subtle bodies. So that's, for us, important. And that's different than Western psychology. In Western psychology, you're limited to childhood.